YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
We begin with breaking news at 11. A deadly shooting in Washington, D.C. happening right outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, where a young diplomat's reception organized by the American Jewish Committee was being held. A man and woman, both staffers at the Israeli embassy, were killed. A man detained and handcuffed by event security was heard chanting, "Free, free Palestine." Attorney General Pam Bondi, one of those responding to the crime scene tonight.
We have the FBI, all of our federal agencies will work hand in hand with you, Chief, as we have done, and you, Mayor, to do everything we can to keep our citizens safe. We will follow the facts, we will follow the law, and this defendant, if charged, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
The Israeli ambassador telling reporters tonight the young man and woman killed were a couple. They were set to be engaged next week in Jerusalem.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. You gotta love that news clip that aired from an affiliate ABC station where within 50 seconds they let you know that there was a killing. A killing, of course, that involved two Jewish people and a man screaming, "Free Palestine." Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves quite the operation on hand here that you need to see. Now, this video has a bunch of parts in it that I highly recommend you pay attention to, including an incredible acting performance from a man who happened to be on site. You're going to learn that this shooting occurred, supposedly, right outside of FBI headquarters. And of course, this is all the makings of a government operation, because within minutes, we find out the backstory of the guy who, of course, we know his nationality immediately. We know he's a victim. And we know, most importantly, he was going to get engaged next week, so they want to pull on your heartstrings for sympathy. And more importantly than that, Donald Trump and the Republican administration comes out demanding that we start changing our hate speech laws. And this is a topic that I've covered, and every Christian needs to pay attention to it, because it has everything to do with you and not Palestine. Because the laws that they intend to change that are on the ADL's website, they all include considering the Bible as a banned book, because some of the verses in the Bible, specifically in the book of Revelation, talk about a certain group of people who claim that they're something and are not, and are of the synagogue of Satan. And they want all of that text removed, which means they want the Bible removed. They consider it a book of hate speech. So let's start here. All the headlines right after this event, they all say the same thing. Israelis feel besieged by global anti-Semitism after Washington attacks. And here is your supposed gunman, Elias Rodriguez, right? Another name, of course, that looks a lot like a George Glass name. And of course, the name Elias is actually a Jewish name. So go figure that it has the Mossad's fingerprints all over the story. There's photographs of the supposed shooter at a lot of communist rallies. He is a member of the Liberation Movement, the Socialism and Liberation Movement from the Party for Socialism and Liberation argued that the murder of Laquan McDonald and the Chicago bid for an Amazon headquarters are two separate issues, but rather they are both connected. So he has a connection, obviously, to communism. And here's the footage that's out there. Let's start here. With how calm this footage is. Think about this. We're in the middle of D.C. The FBI headquarters are across the streets. You got officers all over the place. You're in D.C. You're in the, you're really in the trenches there, right? This isn't some town in Nebraska that has a small police force. You've got a lot of agencies right there within walking distance of one another. And it's interesting to note that A guy who supposedly shoots a man and a woman is standing there. The cops are not aggressive with him. There's even a man standing about 3 feet away from him who is actually laughing. And of course, he makes sure to look over and find the nearest camera so he can yell "Free Palestine." And that's the clip that is aired on every single national media station. Take a look at this.
Outside.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
So even some other photos of him before it happened, sitting outside with his legs crossed. And as I mentioned, the guy with his collar pop was only a few feet away from a supposed shooter. Now imagine something like this happen when you're out somewhere. You're out in a city, you're in Manhattan, and say you're at, the bagel store. Let's use that for irony, right? And you're getting yourself a nice cream cheese bagel. And suddenly you hear pop, pop, and there's a shooting that occurs. Are you standing a couple of feet away? Are you standing there slouched on the side of the building as if you were at a nightclub checking out chicks nearby? Of course not. This is not normal behavior. This is all the makings of a government operation. Now, I need to play for you this news clip because there's a lot of things in it, including an amazing actor who has a lot of Gene Rosen qualities to him, and the discussion about hate crimes and hate speech and how things need to change again, which is why they do false flags and psyops. That's why stories like this make the news immediately, as if, there aren't people that get shot and killed every single day. And then within seconds, they have a they have a story, a background story, who he is. He's supposed to get married next week. So everybody goes, oh, he was about to get married, and his whole life ahead of him. He didn't do anything at all. He was just randomly there. And this guy decided he was going to throw his life away and go to jail for the rest of his life and target someone he doesn't even know, because that makes all the sense in the world, right? The stories never make sense. There's never a motive. Every time you watch a crime show or a true crime or any of these shows like CSI, what do we always hear about? Motive, right? Oh, this guy's wife died. Well, he's the number one suspect, right? Does he have a life insurance policy? Was he having an affair? What's the motive? What's the motive? What's the motive? Right? With these stories, there's never a motive. There's never a motive. The motive is what? Oh, well, I want to yell "Free Palestine" into a camera. I'm willing to throw the rest of my life away and go to prison for life to go after two random people. And then I'm just going to stand there and yell "Free Palestine" because that's the message that I want to send. It's always a government operation. You could smell it. It's poorly acted out. You get your crisis actors who are clearly government operatives. As you'll see this guy who is just saying how terrible it was in the streets. You even get this stage photo that is trending everywhere of somebody who's kneeling in the streets right outside of where this crime supposedly happened and has decided to wrap themselves in an Israeli flag, right? This is the picture that they're using for the thumbnail on all the news stations, right? So this person, let me get this straight. This person heard about the shooting, was nearby, ran home because they had an Israeli flag in their apartment building, decided to get it, wrap themselves in it, and go stand in the streets. How did he know the narrative so fast that the person who was shot was Jewish and the other person yelled "Free Palestine"? Were they there standing by and then they said, you know what? I'm going to make a statement. I'm going to go get my Israel flag and I'm not going to feel nervous. I'm going to go kneel in the road. This is a production, as it always is, from your government. And the narratives behind it, of course, have to do with the anti-Semitism, hate law, hate speech laws that they're going to pass, which have everything to do with Christian rights. Most Christians are completely duped by this. They think all the stuff with Israel, is biblical. They don't understand the current state of Israel, the occupation of Israel, the Balfour Declaration, when Israel became a state, the book of Revelation speaking about the synagogue, of saying they don't know any of that stuff because their churches aren't allowed to speak those things, because you cannot become a tax-exempt church and speak against Israel. You don't get 501c3 privilege unless your church constantly announces how Israel is God's chosen people and then aligns Christianity with Zionism, which is a political movement. But take a look at this clip, because I'm telling you, this guy is going to make Crisis Actor of the Year. At least he's going to be a nominee. He starts breaking up. He goes, he shot a couple. He ran inside. He yelled something, right? He was yelling something. I heard him yell something. And Well, look at this and keep in mind how the mainstream media talks about all of these government buildings that surround where this occurred. All these FBI headquarters, CIA headquarters, incredible. And people watch the news and they still think that all of this stuff is not manufactured.
All right, we begin with this. The suspect accused of killing 2 Israeli embassy employees outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. could face a judge as early as today. Now, this shooting has sparked outrage and concern across the country and around the world. The victims were identified as Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram. They just walked out of an event at the museum when shots rang out.
I was walking by, and a guy came up and looked like a gun. I couldn't tell what it was, but I heard it afterwards, the shots, and he shot this young couple. And he ran inside and yelled something. I couldn't make it out what he said. He just ran up. It was terrible.
A grief-stricken witness there. So police and witnesses say the suspect walked into the museum where he was taken into custody. Video shows him here. He's chanting "Free Palestine" while he was being arrested. CBS News Department of Justice correspondent Scott McFarland, he's close to the scene. Scott, this should be a highly secure area. How could this happen?
There are highly secured areas, and then there are highly secured areas. This is the latter. We are across the street from the FBI's Washington, D.C. field office. You can see the Washington, D.C. police headquarters from certain parts of this block. You're near the U.S. Capitol. You're near the U.S. Justice Department. This is the epicenter of the federal district. So there may have been either an illusion or an expectation of security on these streets last night. According to police, there's been some very incriminating evidence already against the suspected shooter, Elias Rodriguez of Chicago. Not only was he chanting "Free Palestine," they say, after he was taken into custody, they've said he's given some indication he knew where the gun was after the shooting. And according to investigators, he actually fled into the museum after the shooting, then revealed himself after police got onto the scene. There's a court appearance expected today at some point. They have to bring him to court today if they want to continue to hold him in detention, in jail. That could happen in the midday hours here in Washington, D.C. This will be, though, a big federal case, a distinctively high-profile one for the new leadership of the Justice Department.
And adding to the shock, Scott, some of the witnesses were saying on CBS Mornings that they thought he was distraught and actually offered the man water and help as he entered the building before the gunshots rang out. This is now, I understand, due to your reporting, a federal case. So who is in charge of the investigation?
The Washington, D.C. police are leading the investigation. Again, this happened at the doorstep of their headquarters. The FBI is helping them with this investigation, as is protocol, and that was confirmed on social media by the deputy director of the FBI. This will be in the hands of the U.S. attorney here in Washington, D.C. It's a familiar name, Errol. Jeanine Pirro is the new U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. It will be her team leading whatever court hearing happens today. Every expectation is the Department of Justice will seek to hold Rodriguez in pretrial detention. Every indication is the judge will go along with that and accept the request for pretrial detention. Then this moves to the U.S. District Court at some point for a felony prosecution. But there's no indication, Errol. There's a second person believed responsible for this, that there's an accomplice or a second suspect. At this point, everything we're hearing from law enforcement is they have their man.
And we know that Israeli officials have highlighted the victims, this young couple on the verge of the rest of their lives gunned down. Have we heard anything from the White House, from President Trump yet?
Well, let's first of all mention what Israeli Foreign Services says about this couple, Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram. They say that Yaron had an engagement ring he was preparing to give Sarah next week during a visit to Jerusalem. They were a couple. They were among 4 people outside the Capitol Jewish Museum last night. Those 2 were the ones shot and killed, and those 2 were very much a couple. President Trump weighed in on this overnight, saying this clearly, in his words, clearly is an act of anti-Semitism. We heard one of the city leaders here refer to this as a terror strike. That's a very important word in the legal system. Let's see if that makes its way into any charging documents. It's a whole different level of things. So when you get into the prosecution and you get into the charging filings in this case, we expect to see those, though, by midday today, Errol.
And he shot this young couple. And he ran inside and yelled something. I couldn't make it out what he said. He just ran up. It was terrible.
So, I mean, you get a lot of stuff in there. Of course, you end with the story of the couple, and you hear Donald Trump talking about how anti-Semitism must end now. And of course, this has to do with the removal of free speech. That's what this has to do with, and eventually the removal of the Bible. Because remember, Christians are the enemy to these people. These are the ones that they're targeting and despise. So the picture that they're using for the couple, and then playing on your heartstrings right behind them, of course, it is Israel, Israel. You can see the star behind them. And this was also interesting, a tweet that was out there that I saw from a supposed professor of the victim. And the victim, who goes by the name of Yaron Lishansky, that doesn't sound fake, was my student. And he said he was a Christian who served in the IDF and dedicated his life to Israel and Zionism. A righteous soul who bound his fate to the Jewish people. So he was a Christian who laid his life down to support the state of Israel and Zionism, which is a political movement. Now, for anybody out there that hasn't seen this clip before, when the exploding pagers were happening back in 2024, which I covered in detail in the videos that are available on the website, remember the exploding pagers? 60 Minutes put out an episode about the exploding pagers. And they actually aired this on national TV. And this shows you how dumb people are, because this is Mossad talking, supposedly. They're telling you that this is who it is, okay? They tell you that this is a Mossad operative on the news. He's dressed like the Riddler from the new Batman movie. And he says, we create a pretend world. We are a production company. That's what we are. We write screenplays. We're the directors. We're the producers. We're the main actors. The world is our stage. This is Mossad talking about the things that they do, which means that they produce productions like what you just saw. Take a look at this. This aired on 60 Minutes, folks.
How did you convince Hezbollah to buy this?
Obviously, they didn't know that they were buying it from Israel.
Who did they buy it from?
We have an incredible array of possibilities of creating foreign companies that have no way being traced back to Israel. We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay. We're the directors. We're the producers. We're the main actors. The world is our stage.
So the fact that aired on 60 Minutes and people still didn't think twice about what he actually said. Imagine you hear that. The people who control the media, right, talking about how they're a global production company, how, you know, they just create their own companies and they hide behind sock companies and they write screenplays and then they direct it and they produce all this stuff. They're talking about the news and they're talking about the world being their stage because it is their stage, and they manipulate you, and they're manipulating you and thinking that they're the victims. Now back to Donald Trump, because this is so important to note. You may remember, as soon as Trump got into office this time in 2025, he passed an executive order that urged universities to monitor and report protesters on student visas and to deport people who were anti-Israel. This is important because Christians are on board with this, because they're on board with anything that Donald Trump says. And this is Donald Trump's United States Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Listen to the screaming, the anger about anti-Semitism, how they're going to end anti-Semitism. And people just hear that stuff and they don't even realize what it means. It means that you're not going to be allowed to speak against a certain group of people. Think about how insane that is. The LGBT should be thinking about that. Christians should be thinking about that. How one specific group of people who have wretched things written in the books that they teach inside of the places that they go to practice their religion are not allowed to be questioned. That means you could read things that are in there like I have in the past that talk about what they're allowed to do with little ones under the age of 2. And if you question them, well, that's on you. That makes you a hateful person. In fact, eventually you'll be prisoned like we're seeing in countries in Australia. Listen to Pam Bondi even talk about how Benjamin Netanyahu called the minute that this happened. Think about that. Think about the stuff that's supposedly going on over in Israel with Gaza and how many people are dying every day, et cetera, et cetera. And he took the time out to call Pam Bondi, and Trump kept calling because they're so concerned about it, because they want you to be concerned about it. And they want you to listen to them. And when they tell you what's coming next, they want you to accept it. Listen.
Continuing to hit up breaking news this morning, the investigation continues after 2 Israeli staffers shot and killed outside of a museum in Washington, D.C. Attorney General Pam Bondi is now speaking to the media. Let's take a look.
And it's not only here, it's not only in Germany, it's around the world that everyone needs to feel safe. You have to feel safe in this country, and this hate speech has got to stop. We have to come together as not only a community here, but as a nation and as the world. And you being from Germany, you see that. We have to keep everyone safe, and that is the job right now of the Metropolitan Police, Mayor Bowser, Janine Pirro. We were all out here all night long. Everyone is working together as a team. FBI, ATF, our U.S. Marshals are out here trying to protect everyone. But our Jewish community must feel safe. What we saw last night was disgusting. I saw a young man's body being taken away who was about to get engaged. He had an entire life in front of him, and that was taken away. The hate has got to stop, and it has to stop now. And this person will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. You all have to understand, I can't talk about the facts. I can't talk about anything else now. They are working tirelessly to make sure this investigation goes proper. It is. Everyone is working together. And that's what's going to happen now.
Can you talk about the threat? Is there an increased threat level?
You spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
I did.
What did you talk about?
I did. I spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu last night. I was with Ambassador Leiter, and Prime Minister Netanyahu called while I was with him. I spoke to him, and of course he was devastated. He was devastated, and it broke my heart to talk to Bibi last night. He was devastated, and I assured him we were looking into this. Of course, all of our investigators were working together, and I also spoke to President Trump multiple times, who was just heartbroken and devastated by this. And, you know, his first directive to us was make America safe again, and that's what we are going to do. There is no place for this hate in our country and in our world.
And, of course, this is where Christians need to wake up. Because they, you go to the ADL website, they talk about the things that need to stop. And one of the things they discuss is anti-Semitism in the New Testament. They even have a Wikipedia page where they go through Christianity and anti-Semitism. They give you bullet points. According to one of the professors of Christian literature at the Hebrew Union College, there's 10 themes in the New Testament that have been sources of anti-Judaism and anti-Semitism. Number 1, the Jews are culpable for crucifying Jesus. Number 2, the tribulations of the Jewish people throughout history constitute God's punishment of them for killing Jesus. Number 3, Jesus originally came to preach only to the Jews, but when they rejected him, he abandoned them for Gentiles instead. Number 4, the children of Israel were God's original chosen people by virtue of an ancient covenant. But by rejecting Jesus, they forfeited their chosenness. And now by virtue of the new covenant, Christians have replaced the Jews as God's chosen people, the church having become the people of God. Number 5, the Jewish Bible repeatedly portrays the stubbornness of the Jewish people and their disloyalty to God. Number 6, the Jewish Bible contains many predictions of the coming of Jesus as the Messiah, yet the Jews are blind to the meaning of their own Bible. Number 7, by the time of Jesus' ministry, Judaism had ceased to be a living truth. Judaism's essence is a restrictive and burdensome legalism. Christianity emphasizes love, while Judaism stands for justice and a God of wrath. And number 10, Judaism's oppressiveness reflects the disposition of Jesus' opponents called Pharisees. So they want you to believe that everything in the New Testament that goes against the Jewish people is anti-Semitic. And that's what we're headed towards, including the book of Revelation that says in these times there's going to be people who claim to be something, but they're not. They're of the synagogue of Satan. And then you go through, of course, the readings in the books that you're not allowed to question or talk about. And then you say, oh my goodness, these people actually worship the devil. The Kabbalah and these books are actually about magic and sorcery. The same stuff taught in Freemasonry. Wow, that's interesting, right? We should tell people about that, but they don't want you to tell people about that. They want to exterminate Christianity. This is one of the ways they're going to begin doing it. And Christians are going to be so blinded by their obsession and idol worship of Trump that they're going to reject videos like this and say, that's not what's going to happen. That's never going to happen. Trump's chosen by God. Trump was picked by God. Okay, so they put the laws in place, and then Trump leaves office in 2020, and these laws are in place. And then what starts happening? They create false flags about Christians who are now speaking against Israel, and they arrest them, and they do all this stuff because they say Christians are hateful. Christians are the ones who are going against the LGBT. Christians are the ones who are going against the Jewish people. Christians are the ones who need to be abolished. Christians, Muslims, anybody who speaks out against this current state manufactured by the government. It's really the military-industrial complex that sits over there that you're not allowed to discuss. So we go back to this story. Of course, the video's probably going to get a strike, but what can you do, you know? You go back to the story, right? After it occurs, you look at the headlines. All the headlines are about anti-Semitism, okay? They already get the narrative of who the shooter is immediately, Elias Rodriguez. You look into his background. You see him standing outside at communist rallies, or excuse me, socialist rallies. Same difference. He commits the crime. He does the shooting. He's standing there. He's got no blood on him, nothing. He's standing there in his blazer. He's getting cuffed. The police don't look concerned that they just have a man that was shooting at people. There's a guy literally standing over there, smirking at him while all this stuff goes on. There's pictures of him sitting outside the building beforehand. The building is located right by the FBI Washington field office, right by the U.S. Capitol, right? You have CIA headquarters over there as well. You get the person in the street immediately with the Israeli flag draped around them. How did they know the narrative so fast? How did they know immediately, right? Couldn't have been two Christian people. I mean, according to a professor of one of the guys that was shot, he was actually a Christian. Couldn't have been Christian people visiting the Jewish museum? How would you know what their nationality was? How did the news know so fast? Doesn't it take time to get this information, to get the information on the shooter, to get the information on the victims? Oh, but they immediately know the whole story of how they had a trip planned for Israel next week, and he had this sweet proposal planned for the love of his life. He was going to start his future. All the same types of narratives to play on your heartstring. Meanwhile, no motive for the killer other than to yell Free Palestine, which he could do anywhere he wants pretty much, at a rally or whatever on a campus, and maybe even get deported for it, according to some of the stuff we've heard over the last couple of months. But his motive was what? Go after two random strangers? Did he know their background story? Was he connected to them? No, there's no motive at all. The motive was that he's pro-Palestine. And now he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life. He's an activist, right? Well, he's not an activist anymore. You got the crisis actor, that was top-notch for me. Always incredible when we get a good crisis actor, which happens most of the time, but I feel like less and less they're airing those things. And don't forget that clip I played from 60 Minutes, where they talk openly about how they're a global production company, how the world is their stage. They don't hide it. And we're saying we. That was an interview with Mossad, okay? It looked like it was an interview with the Riddler, but really it was Mossad. But what's the difference, right? Because these people just hide in front of our faces and nobody can do anything about it. And then, of course, you get Trump, you get the Republican Party demanding, screaming, Pam Bondi screaming about we are not going to take this anymore. Anti-Semitism must stop. We must pass more laws, right? It's the same. It's a mirror image of the other false flags and psyops that we see. Something happens at a school. 5 seconds later, someone's on TV. We got to get guns now. We don't want prayers. We want guns, right? Nobody's mourning. The parents are calling for gun control without even caring about their kid being deceased. And then you get her on TV immediately talking about anti-Semitism. Well, what do you think she's talking about? She's talking about speech. What you're allowed to say online, what you're allowed to say on college campuses, who you can question and who you can't. They're telling you how to think, and they're going to make people so afraid to speak out against a certain group of people that people will refuse to do it. And that's eventually what the world's going to turn into. People won't, even though a lot of people will already know the truth by then, because eventually they'll realize it. Eventually Christians will realize that this whole thing, this whole scam that they're pulling is going to target the Bible. because they consider the Bible a book of hate and hate speech, just like the LGBT does, right? What does the LGBT say? They say ban Bibles because Sodom and Gomorrah, it's a book of hate, right? Well, next you're going to start hearing about, hey, the Pharisees. Why are they getting, deemed horrible people? Why are you telling us that we're the ones who crucified Jesus? Why are you saying, that we're not the chosen ones anymore? That's anti-Semitic to say that God has rejected us because we rejected Jesus, and now Christians are the chosen. How dare you think that way, right? Because they want Christians to continually bow down at the feet of Israel. And they don't realize what they're even bowing down at. They're bowing down at a killing machine, a military-industrial complex created in the 1940s for all the stuff that you're seeing going on in the world today, for all the psyops, for all the false flags, all coming out of the same place. I thank everybody for being here. This video probably won't be up long, but got to put the truth out. Hard not to sometimes. Hopefully you guys are still listening to the end and understand where I'm coming from, what I'm discussing here. I know that people who are new to this stuff, it's one of those topics that blows their mind at first, and they need to go deeper. They can join the website if they want to go deeper. They can research on their own before it's all scrubbed off of Google. It's already pretty much DuckDuckGo, etc. And you can find the truth out for yourself and why these laws need to be in place before everybody realizes who's responsible for all the psyops, all the false flags, all the division, all the divide and conquer, all the things that you're going to continue to see moving forward, the weather modification, all of it. We all know who, but can't say, but we all know. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.